Yes, it's late, and yes, I'm debuting a brand new Kachina hat to go with my old Kachina jersey. This available through Lids. It's not on sale right now. It was 30% off when I bought it because I watch that site every single day. As crazy as it sounds, there are certain sites I check every single day, and this is why I was waiting on a Kachina hat for so long that would look like it matched what I was wearing with Kachina jerseys. It's a Kachina type day, and we'll see whether or not it's a Kachina type day tomorrow. That's the real question, and we'll get to that game in a bit. First up, Toronto and Boston. Now, we've been over this. We've been over this every time that the Maple Leafs play the Bruins. The Maple Leafs scare me because the Maple Leafs are, in my opinion, a team playing some of the best hockey in the league. And as much as people laugh when I say it, they have 20 wins, 8 losses, 1 overtime loss. They have 41 points. They are not far out of first at all, and they've played pretty darn well, and now they have a full roster. On the Boston side, it's 14, 10, and 4. It's not a full roster, and without Bergeron, they're really starting to feel it now. Unlike last year where they had Riley Nash to jump in the middle, and Nash made up for a lot of what Bergeron had been doing, that is not something that they have this year. They just have not been able to make up for that loss. I really miss Riley Nash with the Bruins right now. I really wish they'd re-signed him. On the Toronto side of things, Mitch Marner leads the way in scoring with 6 goals, 34 assists for 40 points, which is ridiculous. Tavares, 16 goals and 16 assists. Riley, 9 goals, 22 assists. Matthews, 15 goals and 9 assists. Kapanen, 11 goals, 10 assists. Marleau, 7 goals, 9 assists. Kadri, 8 goals, 8 assists. And Hyman with 7 goals, 8 assists. And making news today, William Nylander's down to the third line at practice. Yeah, you can't just throw him out there on the first line. He's got to get back into the swing of things. I don't understand that. So third line makes more sense. Cut back his ice time a little bit, and he'll get back there. But don't just throw him to the Wolves right away. That's a Seth Jones thing, and not everybody can go through that. Or Shea Weber, too, in Montreal, was thrown to the Wolves his first game back. On the Boston side, Pasternak, 20 goals, 12 assists. Bergeron still up there in scoring because Boston doesn't have a lot behind him. 9 goals, 17 assists for 26 points. Marchand, 7 goals, 17 assists. Krejci, 3 goals, 17 assists. Jake DeBrusk, 10 goals, 2 assists. Krug with 12 assists. Grzelcyk, 1 goal, 7 assists. And Charlie Mack is back, but he didn't have a point in the last game, so he's still sitting with 1 goal and 5 assists for 6 points. The least amount of points any team has to reach their top 8 scorers. Goaltenders. Let me double check and see if anybody's confirmed, but since it's the night before, I have my doubts. All right, just as I suspected, it's the night before the game, so nobody's confirmed yet. I expect Anderson, which would make Sparks the backup. He's 4-1-1, 2.95 goals against, 9.12 save percentage. Anderson 16-7 with a 2.32 goals against, 9.31 save percentage. I expect Halak for Boston because Rask lost the last game. Halak's 8-4-2, 2.25 goals against, 9.31 save percentage. Rask is 6-6-2 with a 2.62 goals against, 9.12 save percentage. Over their last 10, Toronto's 7-2-1. They lost their last game. Boston's 4-4-2. They've lost 3 in a row. On the road, Toronto's an impressive 11-3. At home, Boston's pretty solid 9-3. That road trip really tripped them up. Versus the East, Toronto is 9-5-1 versus the East. The Boston Bruins are 10-6-1, so very similar records there. Toronto's number 2 in the Atlantic. They're 4 points behind Tampa, and they have 1 game in hand. For Boston, they're the number 2 wild card. They're 1 point behind Montreal. They're only 2 points ahead of Detroit. This is why I've been saying for a while, Detroit is not out of it. They absolutely can get themselves into a playoff spot if they don't lose hope and they don't lose their focus. And for Boston, there's some danger there that Boston could find themselves on the outside of the playoffs looking in at around the halfway mark of the year. When they get Bergeron back, when they get Chara back, things could get better. But it doesn't always work out that way. So we'll see, right? Next up, Pittsburgh. The Penguins, 12-10-5, starting to look better, starting to look like Pittsburgh. In against Ottawa, who are starting to look like Ottawa again. They're 12-14-3. So this game looks like two teams that are going in opposite directions, but the numbers tell you it might be a little bit closer than you might expect. And remember, Ottawa, there may be some members of this team still left from the one that came up 1 goal short against Pittsburgh in 2017's playoffs. Not a lot, but there's some. On the Pittsburgh side, Kessel, 12 goals, 21 assists. He's now the number one scorer. He's ahead of Malkin because he's got more goals. Malkin, 10 goals, 23 assists. Crosby, 15 goals, 17 assists. He's only 1 point off of Kessel and Malkin. Gensel, 12 goals, 13 assists, 25 points. This is finally that season Pittsburgh fans have been waiting for when Gensel of the playoffs shows up in the regular season. Letang, 7 goals, 17 assists. Hornquist, 12 goals, 7 assists. Simone, 4 goals, 9 assists. And Alexiak's up to 4 goals and 7 assists. So 11 points for Jamie Alexiak. Good for him. On the Ottawa side of things, Duchesne, 12 goals, 22 assists. Stone, 14 goals, 18 assists. Shabbat, 7 goals, 24 assists. Dzingel, 11 goals, 9 assists, 20 points for him. Remember, he's a UFA this next summer, too. Tierney, 3 goals, 17 assists. White, 8 goals, 10 assists. Ryan, 6 goals, 12 assists. And Mikkel Bodker, 3 goals and 14 assists for 17 points. Thank you very much. Goaltenders, I expect DeSmith here, although they could go with Jarry. DeSmith, 8-4-3, 2.46 goals against, 923 save percentage. Murray, 4-5-1, 4.08 goals against, 877 save percentage. And Jarry, 0-1-1, 3.50 goals against, 887 save percentage. On the Ottawa side of things, does anybody expect that it won't be Craig Anderson at all? Ever? Anderson's 11-11-3 now. 3.69 goals against, 904 save percentage. McKenna, 1-1, 4.66 goals against, 879 save percentage. Oh, free Anderson. Last 10, Pittsburgh's 5-3-2. They've won 2 in a row. Ottawa's 4-6. They've lost their last 2. On the road, Pittsburgh's 5-4-3. At home, Ottawa's 9-5-2. Versus the East, Pittsburgh struggles. 4-9-4 versus the East. Ottawa's mediocre, 9-9-1, which is better than struggling, I guess. If you're looking for a bright side, this might be it for Ottawa. The Pittsburgh Penguins are outside the playoffs, but they're 1 point behind Carolina, who are third in the Metro. Carolina has less points than the number 2 wild card. So for teams in the Metro, it's easier right now to jump into the playoffs than if you're in the Atlantic. The Ottawa Senators, for instance, are 5 points out of the playoffs. So they need some help, and they need to jump over some teams, and they need to start helping themselves. Because once you get to 7-8 points out of the playoffs, it's getting around that point where you're probably not going to be able to make it up. I know how early it is in the season. It's only 29 games in, 30 games after tomorrow. But if these guys find themselves 7 points out, I would expect that you ramp up your talks about who you're going to re-sign, and you ramp up your talks about who you're going to move out. So look for things to move quickly if Ottawa continues this drop that they're on. Next up, Nashville, coming off of a rough loss against Vancouver. They're in against a Calgary Flames team, and I expect the Flames to be very energetic tomorrow is a word for it. They've won 4 in a row, and they're going to want to make it 5 against the best team in the West. And this can be a huge statement game for them, because if Calgary beats Nashville, they pass Nashville in points tomorrow. If they beat them in regulation, anyways. Nashville's 19-9-1, and the Flames are suddenly 18-9-2. And they look very dangerous, very for real, and impressive. On the Nashville side, Johansson, 5 goals, 20 assists. Forsberg, 14 goals, 8 assists. Yossi, 5 goals, 15 assists. Ekholm, 3 goals, 14 assists. Turris, 5 goals, 11 assists. Fiala, 5 goals, 10 assists. Smith, 7 goals, 7 assists. And Arvidsson, 8 goals and 5 assists. On the Calgary side of things, Johnny Gaudreau, 12 goals, 25 assists for him. Monahan, 17 goals, 16 assists. Lindholm, 15 goals, 17 assists. Tkachuk, 13 goals and 19 assists. Backlund, who won't be playing tomorrow night, 5 goals, 12 assists. Hanifin, 3 goals, 10 assists. And Brody, 3 goals and 9 assists to round out the top 8. And for the record, I did think the Dumba hit was clean, and I didn't think it was worthy of suspension, but I understand people are upset today. There's a lot of talk about how Calgary needs to have some more pushback, and that the NHL in general needs more pushback. I think this is going to be a conversation we start having more and more as the games become more important. So we'll see if that happens, but we'll see what happens tomorrow night, because this is a very important game for both teams. I expect Rene back in the net. He's going to want that net back after that game against Vancouver the other night. He's going to want to get his stats back up there. He's 12-5-1. His goals against almost at 2. Oof, 1.96. I don't know. That's still pretty darn good. 930 save percentage. Saros 7-4, 3.29 goals against, 889 save percentage. So when Saros has been in, his stats have been a little lackluster. I would expect Smith tomorrow night. Riddick is 8-2-1, 2.39 goals against, 919 save percentage. But Smith is now 10-7-1, and he's 2.93 with his goals against and 891 with his save percentage. So those numbers are improving every game, and he is looking to make up more and more ground with Riddick every game. Over their last 10, Nashville's 6-4. They lost their last game. Calgary's 8-1-1. They've won 4 in a row. On the road, Nashville's now 11-5, and Calgary's 8-4-5, which is not as good as you would expect. Let me double check on that because that's more overtime losses than they actually have. All right, that looks better. 9-3-2 is their home record for the Flames. Versus the West, Nashville's 11-9-1, and the Flames are 13-6-1. So Nashville has struggled against the West. They're 8-0 against the East. They haven't lost a single game against the East this year. Against the West, they struggle. They're 11-9-1. It's kind of weird. It's one of those things I look at, and it kind of surprises me that they've only won 11 out of 21 against their own conference. Especially since very often when compared, people see the East as being the stronger of the two conferences. So it's a strange thing. Right now, Nashville's tied for first in the Central with Colorado, but they have more regulation and overtime wins, so they're ahead of Colorado on that. And right now, the Calgary Flames are first in the Pacific. They're 3 points ahead of Anaheim. So as long as they're 3 points ahead of Anaheim, life's pretty good. They can make that 5 tomorrow with a win. And, once you get to 5 points ahead, you can start sort of relaxing. Not a lot. I'm not saying you take your foot off the gas, but, you start feeling a little bit better. You get a little more relaxed. It doesn't feel quite as urgent, and you can actually make fewer mistakes once you get your lead in your division up to a nice, healthy total. And you might actually minimize the risk of injury. But anyways, up next, San Jose. Oh, Sharks. They went into tonight with a couple of wins in a row, and then they lost, and now they're going into Arizona. And I'm not sure what to make of the Sharks right now, and I mean that. They're 14-11-5. Arizona's 13-12-2, and Arizona is just as much of a wild card as San Jose. This game could be really interesting. San Jose's leading scorer is still Brent Burns, 4 goals, 25 assists. Couture, 9 goals, 19 assists. Meyer, 14 goals, 12 assists. Pavelski, 18 goals and 6 assists. Hurdle, 7 goals, 12 assists. LeBanc, 3 goals, 16 assists. Erik Karlsson, 2 goals, 16 assists. So the points are there at times for Karlsson, and we're still waiting for that consistency with the points. Kane with 8 goals and 9 assists. He finally got one tonight. Can he go on a goal streak? He can be kind of a streaky player, so you never know. On the Arizona side of things, Clayton Keller leads the way with 8 goals and 11 assists. Schmaltz, 4 goals, 12 assists. Ekman Larson, 2 goals, 13 assists. Stepan, 6 goals, 7 assists. Hinostroza, 4 goals, 8 assists. Grabner, 6 goals, 5 assists. Richardson, 7 goals and 3 assists. Galchenyuk, 3 goals, 7 assists. What is needed for Arizona is their defense to be on point and their goaltending to be excellent, because their scoring is spotty and they don't really have a premier scorer. Keller, with 19 points in 27 games, is good, but is he, anywhere near a point a game? No. And right now Arizona doesn't have anybody in that range, so they kind of need to play a really solid game defensively. They need that solid goaltending to have a chance. And against San Jose, that could be tricky. In net, I expect Dell, because Jones played tonight. Dell is 3-4-2 with a 2.88 goals against, 904 save percentage. Jones 11-7-3, 2.91 goals against, 900 save percentage. On the Arizona side of things, I expect Hill until everybody else is healthy. Hill's 4-1 with a 1.09 goals against, 957 save percentage. Ronta is 5-6 with a 2.88 goals against, 906 save percentage, and Kemper 4-5-2 with a 2.71 goals against, 914 save percentage. Please don't carry 3 goaltenders, John Chayka. In their last 10, San Jose's 4-4-2 and they lost their last game. Arizona's 5-4-1. They lost their last game. On the road, San Jose's 5-8-3. It has been a rough time on the road for San Jose. We'll see if they can break that tomorrow night. They did win their last road game in Montreal. They need to win more than one in a row on the road to really technically be reversing trends. At home, Arizona's 6-7-1, so this could be advantageous to the Sharks. Versus the West, the Sharks are 8-5-1. Versus the West, Arizona's 8-6-1. That's a pick'em situation. They're number 2 in the wild card are those Sharks. They're 1 point ahead of Minnesota and Edmonton, but they've played one more game. So they're not in control of their destiny right now, which doesn't mean anything in November or December, but it will start meaning something very, very soon. The Arizona Coyotes are 5 points out of the playoffs currently, and they have to be kind of concerned that they could be on the verge of falling out. Much like Ottawa over here, it's close. It's closer than you want to be. Put it that way. But for Arizona, at least it's better than their start last year. Last year's start at this time, they were just abysmal. Flyers. The Flyers are in against the Buffalo Sabres. So it's an interesting matchup between Philly and Buffalo for a simple reason. Philly is flirting with dropping out of the playoffs altogether as well. And of course, there are a lot of Flyers fans who are going to say, Shannon, we're not going to make it anyways. Understood. On the Buffalo side, they're flirting with an actual slump. Now, they've lost 4 in a row, and people are going to take shots at the Sabres. You know what? They've been very competitive in those games. They lose with less than 2 seconds left against Toronto kind of thing. Like, you know, it's not like they're not in these games. It's not like they're getting killed. It's not like, you know, like, this is one of those things when you've got a young team that's coming together, it'll happen. They end up coming up just short against the elite teams in the conference or in the league. And it's not something to get overly worked up about, because at some point, once you've gone through these experiences, the next time around, the results are different. And when you look at, whether you're looking at Tampa, you're looking at Nashville, you're looking at Calgary, for instance, in the West, teams that go through all of this, they will learn and they'll rise to the top at a later date. And in Buffalo's case, they're such a young, talented team. You know what? If you want to take them lightly, you do it at your own peril. On the Philadelphia side of things, Giroux leads them in scoring with 10 goals, 22 assists. Voracek, 7 goals, 14 assists. Couturier, 10 goals and 10 assists. Konechny, 8 goals and 10 assists. Simmons, 9 goals, 4 assists. Gostisbehere, 3 goals, 9 assists for him. Lindblom, 4 goals, 7 assists. I always write Lindholm. I get so used to writing Lindholm. Whether it's Lindholm for the Flames or Lindholm for Anaheim. And I put Lindholm up there again, but I caught it. It's Lindblom. And Lawton, 6 goals and 4 assists to round out the top 8 scorers for the Philadelphia Flyers. On the Buffalo side, Eichel, 7 goals, 27 assists, 34 points. Pretty solid player. Skinner, 20 goals and 9 assists. Reinhart, 8 goals, 16 assists. Pominville, 9 goals and 9 assists. Ristolainen, 3 goals and 14 assists. Okposo, 5 goals, 10 assists. Dahlin, 2 goals and 12 assists. And Connor Sherry rounds it out with 6 goals and 6 assists. Goaltenders, it'll be Stolarz until everybody else is healthy. And by everybody, I mean Elliott. Because I don't think Neuwirth will end up starting ahead of him. I could be wrong, but I don't think it'll happen. Neuwirth, 0-1, 6.00 goals against, 727 save percentage. Stolarz, 1-1-1, 3.18 goals against, 901 save percentage. Elliott, 6-7, 2.59 goals against, 911 save percentage. So when he comes back, he will be the de facto starter unless he plays his way out of that role, which he has before. On the Buffalo side, I expect Carter Hutton. Ullmark is the backup then at 5-0-3, 2.71 goals against, 921 save percentage. Hutton, 12-8-1, 2.6 goals against, 917 save percentage. Over their last 10, Philadelphia's 3-5-2. They lost their last game. Buffalo's 6-2-2, and they've lost 4 in a row. But notice 2 of those were overtime or shootout. Again, they're not getting killed. On the road, Philadelphia 6-5-1 at home. Buffalo's an impressive 9-2-2. Versus the East, Philadelphia's 5-8-2 versus the East. Buffalo is 9-4-3. The Philadelphia Flyers are 5 points behind third in the Metro, which is Carolina. And for Buffalo, they're third in the Atlantic. They're 3 points behind Toronto, but they're 5 points up on Montreal. So Buffalo is pretty solidly entrenched in that spot. And I would think that if they can play, let's see, they're 9 games above 500 right now. If they can play 5 or 6 games above 500 for the rest of the season and end up with 97, 98 points, yeah, that's a pretty solid total. Just think, if they were 500 from here, that's 91 points. It's not playoffs with 91 in all likelihood, but if they finish with 97 or 98, It very likely is. So as tough as things may look right now, as dark as things may look right now with the 4 losses in a row, really they don't have to play that great from here in order to make the playoffs. That being said, I'm now going to change boards. Alrighty. Next up, Vegas. So the Golden Knights have gone on a nice little run here. And they've made themselves relevant again. They've got themselves back into a playoff spot, which is bad news for the rest of the West, right? Because these guys are starting to feel good about themselves. The swagger's starting to come back. I'm starting to read comments about how cocky they are, the fans and the team. And when I'm starting to read comments of people complaining about Vegas, that means Vegas is doing well. And that's just reality. And they're in against the one team that's just not. They're not. You look at tonight's result, St. Louis goes in and beats Winnipeg, and St. Louis has had those wins where, they've beaten Winnipeg, they've beaten Nashville, they've beaten some good teams. The Kings, it just doesn't feel like they're getting that kind of a win that you look at and go, that could turn things around. And they're 10-18-1. It's really out of reach for them, and every game just seems to take them further away, and tomorrow night could make it worse. Well, tomorrow afternoon. It's an afternoon game. Marchessault leads Vegas in scoring with 11 goals and 12 assists. Carlson, 9 goals, 13 assists. Alex Tuck, 9 goals, 12 assists. Smith, 5 goals, 15 assists. Eakin, 11 goals, 8 assists now for him, 19 points. Pacioretty, 10 goals, 7 assists. Theodore, 4 goals, 13 assists. Miller, 2 goals, 10 assists. On the LA side of things, Kopitar, 7 goals, 11 assists. Doughty, 2 goals, 14 assists. Brown, 8 goals, 7 assists. Kovalchuk, 5 goals, 9 assists. Carter, come on, Carter. Let's get some points or goals or something. 5 goals, 9 assists for him. Toffoli, so that's 14. That should say 14. I tell you, when I do these things when I'm this tired. Toffoli, 5 goals, 7 assists. Yeah, Kovalchuk and Carter, it's 14. I swear I can add. Iafallo, 5 goals, 6 assists. And Martinez, 3 goals and 8 assists for him. Goaltenders, I expect Fleury. 16-9-1, 2.43 goals against, 912 save percentage. Why? Malcolm Subban, 0-4, 4.02 goals against, 859 save percentage. On the LA side, I would go with Peterson personally if I was Willie Desjardins. That being said, I would not be surprised if it's quick. 1-6-1, 3.52 goals against, 884 save percentage. Campbell, who's still on the mend, 5-7, 2.33 goals against, 923 save percentage. Peterson, 4-4, 2.41 goals against, 929 save percentage. Pretty decent numbers for the kid. Give him a shot. Over their last 10, Vegas is 8-2. They've won 2 in a row. Over their last 10, LA's 4-6. They've lost their last 2. On the road, Vegas is 7-10. It is the one part of their record that still needs to get fixed. At home, though, LA's is not any better. They're 6-10-1. So for winning percentage, it very slightly favors Vegas. Versus the West, this really favors Vegas. 10-5-1. Versus the West, LA 5-11-1. And Vegas has owned their own division. Anytime they play a division rival, they've owned them. Vegas, as I said, they're number 3 in the Pacific. They're 2 points behind Anaheim, and they have a game in hand. So this is it. The Kings, they're last in the West, and they're 12 points away from the playoffs. 12. They're pretty far out. And for them to get in, they are already at the point, even though we're only 29 games into the season, they're at the point where they would need to go on a winning streak. I would say they need to play 15 games above 500 from here to get into that conversation. And for them to actually make the playoffs from here, I would think, 20 games above 500 minimum? It's already at a stage where it's pretty darn hard to see them actually making it in there. This is why I say those early games that we all talk about, it's not that important. It kind of sort of is. All right, next up. The Islanders, 13-11-3. They're in against the Detroit Red Wings, 13-12-4. This is a surprising matchup in that the Islanders are still relevant. They're not as far out as people might think because they're in the Metro. And for Detroit, they're not as far out as anybody thinks at 13-12-4. It is true that Boston has a game in hand on them, but they're not that far behind Boston, and Boston's been losing a bunch lately. Leading scorers for the Islanders, Lee, with 11 goals and 11 assists, is up at the top now. Bailey, 7 goals, 15 assists. Last I read, he'd been dropped down to the third line. They're not happy with his production lately. Barzal, 3 goals, 18 assists. He's been quiet as well. Nelson, 10 goals, 10 assists. Filppula, 7 goals, 9 assists. Eberle, 6 goals, 7 assists. Mayfield, 3 goals, 10 assists, and Komarov, 3 goals and 8 assists to round out the Islanders scoring. On the Detroit side of things, Larkin, 11 goals, 15 assists. Nyquist, who's had an amazing run lately, 7 goals and 19 assists. Athanasiou, 11 goals, 7 assists. Nielsen, 4 goals, 14 assists. Bertuzzi, 9 goals, 7 assists. Green, 3 goals, 13 assists. Mantha, 9 goals, 5 assists. Cholowski, 4 goals and 8 assists for him. So goaltenders, I expect Greiss here. Leonard was on the scratch list last game. He's 4-5-2, 2.79 goals against, 913 save percentage. Gibson came in relief in the last game, has no record, 3.00 goals against, 857 save percentage. Thomas Greiss, 9-6-1, 2.61 goals against, 918 save percentage. On the Detroit side of things, I expect Howard. Bernier played in the last game against Toronto. He's now 4-6, 3.4 goals against, 896 save percentage. Howard is 9-6-4, 2.77 goals against, 920 save percentage. Over their last 10, the Islanders are 4-5-1, and they lost 2 in a row. Detroit's 5-3-2. They've won their last game. On the road, the Islanders are 6-7-1. At home, Detroit's 7-6-3. So there's not a whole lot to choose when it comes to road and home record. It could be either team here. Versus the East, the Islanders are an impressive 10-5-3. Detroit less impressive at 9-8-3. So that kind of favors the Islanders. The Islanders are 1 point behind Carolina for number 3 spot in the Metro. And for Detroit, they're 2 points away from the playoffs. They would qualify in the Metro, but because they're in the Atlantic, they're 2 points behind the wild card spot occupied by the Boston Bruins. So there you go. It looks like this year we may see a team qualify in the Metro that maybe wouldn't have made it for a wild card. We might see some controversy there. But that'd be a first for the NHL playoffs, right? This game, and it's interesting to me in that the Islanders, even though they're below 500 in their last 10, they are a team that I wonder about how they're going to do as the season goes along. I do have some concerns about their lack of a really marquee scorer. No offense to Anders Lee, but the really marquee level talent, maybe they're starting to feel that loss of Tavares at this point. Maybe that's the kind of player that they need. The good news is if they miss the playoffs and win the draft lottery, they'll get him. But I don't think the Islanders are that far off, so I'm not throwing them in the grave just yet. It's a little bit dicey right now because there's a lot of teams in the East fighting for very few playoff spots. A good team in the East is going to miss the playoffs. That's absolutely a guarantee at this point. Next up, Colorado. So the Avs, 17-7-5, are in against the virtually unstoppable Tampa Bay Lightning, are 22-7-1. And yeah, Tampa Bay right now is the most impressive team in the league, despite the fact they're without Vasilevsky, which it seems as every week goes along is less and less of an issue. It really is. And Vasi, with the amount of time he's missed with injury, as frustrating as that's going to be for him. Remember, last year, he was kind of getting overplayed and not saying I'm tired, but not saying he wasn't tired. And this year, he's had a lot of time off. Yes, it's with injury, but it should help prevent him from getting overly tired. We're 30 games into the season. So the most he could play from here would be 52. 52 games after this in a row, which would be a lot. But still, he won't play that many. At least with the amount of games that Domingue has had, it'll show management, you know what? You can rest Vasi and not worry about it. The team will score plenty to make up for any shortfall between Domingue from Vasilevsky, and they're kind of playing Vegas hockey right now. Tampa's playing hockey the way Vegas did last year. They adapt to their goaltender. It's pretty fun. On the scoring side of things, there's a lot of scoring between these two teams. This might be a very high-scoring game. Rantanen leads the way for Colorado and the league with 12 goals, 35 assists. McKinnon, 19 goals, 25 assists. Landeskog, 17 goals and 16 assists. Soderberg, 10 goals, 11 assists. Barry, 4 goals, 17 assists. Kerfoot, 4 goals, 14 assists. Gerard, 2 goals and 10 assists. And Wilson with 7 goals and 4 assists rounds out the scoring for the Colorado Avalanche. On the Tampa Bay side of things, Kucherov, 12 goals, 31 assists. Point, 21 goals, 17 assists. A dark horse for the Hart Trophy this year. Stamkos, 10 goals, 16 assists. Gourde, 10 goals, 13 assists. Johnson, 11 goals, 9 assists. Miller, 6 goals and 14 assists. McDonough, 2 goals, 18 assists. Killorn with 5 goals and 10 assists. And 1 point off is Victor Hedman, 4 goals and 10 assists. He's getting there. Goaltending, I expect Varlamov because it's a big game. Grubauer is 7-1-2 with a 2.96 goals against, 908 save percentage. Varlamov is 10-6-3, 2.43 goals against, 923 save percentage. Pasquale, 1-0-0 record with a 4.62 goals against, 792 save percentage. 792 and he's unbeaten. That's the scoring that they provide. Vasilevsky, 9-3-1, 2.29 goals against, 927 save percentage. Domingue, 12-4 with a 3.07 goals against, 902 save percentage. The one question with Vasi is this: if he comes back, gets those nights off, and puts up really good numbers, is he going to end up in the same position as Marc-Andre Fleury did last year, where he didn't play enough games to really get serious consideration for the Vezina? That's an interesting point. Over their last 10, Colorado's 8-1-1 with their last game being a win. And for Tampa, they're 8-2. They've won 5 in a row. It sounds like quite the clash to me. On the road, Colorado's an impressive 11-5-2. Tampa's 12-4 at home. Also impressive numbers. Versus the East, Colorado's 10-3-2. Tampa's a surprising 5-5-1. So Tampa owns the East, struggles against the West. Nashville owns the East and struggles against the West. So, again, we talk about how the East is stronger than the West, but I don't know. The numbers seem to indicate some Western teams are really tough to beat. Right now, Colorado's tied with Nashville for first in the Central, but they have 17 regulation or overtime wins, and Nashville has 19. So that's your separator right there. And, of course, Tampa Bay is first. They are 4 points ahead of Toronto. Again, Toronto has a game in hand. We'll see if that means anything. If Tampa loses in regulation, Toronto wins in regulation, Toronto's going to be dancing in the streets at the idea of, hey, maybe at Christmas we'll be number one in the league. It's crazy, but you just never know. They're not that far off. That being said, let us move on. The Rangers. Yes, the New York Rangers, 13-12-5, in against Florida, who are 11-11-5. The Rangers, great winning streak. Now they're back into mediocrity. Which one's the real Rangers? Tomorrow night's game could tell us a lot because Florida's been just kind of mediocre all year. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Lose a couple in overtime, win one really impressively. Bring your fans to their feet and then just kick them. Kick them right in the head with the next game. Zibanejad leads the way in scorers for the New York Rangers, 8 goals and 17 assists. Kreider, 14 goals and 8 assists. Hayes, 5 goals, 12 assists. Pionk, 4 goals, 12 assists. VC, 9 goals, 5 assists. Howden, 4 goals, 9 assists. Zuccarello, 3 goals, 7 assists. And Jesper Fast, 2 goals and 8 assists, rounds out your top 8 scorers for the New York Rangers. On the Florida side of things, Huberdeau, 7 goals, 24 assists. Dadonov, 13 goals, 14 assists. Hoffman, 14 goals and 12 assists. Barkov, 10 goals, 16 assists. Yandel, 4 goals, 21 assists. Trocheck, 3 goals, 11 assists. Matheson, 2 goals, 11 assists. Ekblad, 6 goals and 6 assists. You know, when I see Matheson scoring the way he is and playing as well as he is, it reminds me of Canuck fans being angry over the slam on Pettersson and the comments about how he was useless and he was a terrible hockey player and he sucked. And I kept thinking, you know, I admit I think he's a little overpaid, but Matheson doesn't suck. He's a solid defenseman, and his numbers since the suspension have been pretty solid. On the goaltending front, I expect Lundqvist in this game because I just kind of get the feeling. Georgiev was sent down to the American League to get some work in, and they asked him about it, and he said that's fine. Probably said it's fine because every time he gets sent down to the minors, he comes back up and plays well. Lundqvist is 9-8-3, 2.63 goals against, 921 save percentage. Georgiev 4-4 with a 3.37 goals against, 899 save percentage. Goaltenders, I expect Luongo here. Luongo's 5-4 with a 2.85 goals against, 911 save percentage. Reimer's 5-6-3, 3.36 goals against, 893 save percentage. And you'll notice over the last few games when I do these previews, I don't really talk about goaltenders that we know we're not going to see in the game. Unless it's somebody who's injured and is a veteran. I've just started dropping the guys who've only made 1 appearance or 2 appearances, or a guy who in Pickard's case has been traded or left on waivers, I should say. So that's why you don't see Hutchinson up there for Florida. Over their last 10, the Rangers are 4-5-1. They've lost 3 in a row. And the Panthers are also mediocre at 4-4-2, and they lost their last game. On the road, mediocre. The Rangers 3-8-2, and this is what submarined their winning streak. This is what's kept them from really getting ahead, getting into that playoff spot, and potentially moving into second spot in the Metro. If they could get consistency on the road, they would be challenging Columbus for second. So 3-8-2 isn't going to cut it. At home, Florida 6-5-3, which is okay, but when you think they've won 6 out of 14, you kind of start understanding all the empty seats in Florida. This team hasn't won anything in a very, very long time. Versus the East, the Rangers are 7-7-2. Versus the East, Florida's 9-7-4. So both teams would like to improve those numbers. The Rangers are only 1 point behind Carolina in the very crowded Metropolitan Division. So they're only 1 point out of the playoffs right now. And for Florida, they're in the Atlantic, so they're hosed. They're 5 points out of the playoffs right now, are the Florida Panthers. And again, much like Ottawa, they're in trouble. And what do you do with Florida? I mean, their main problem has been getting consistent goaltending. That's honestly been the main problem. It's not their scoring, but I guess we'll see what they do, right? It's going to be a very interesting offseason if this team misses the playoffs again. That's all I got to say for them. Finally, last but not least, the Washington Capitals, Columbus Blue Jackets, kind of the game of the night, if you want to call it that. It is the battle for first in the Metro, and this should be a fun game between two teams that know how to play a fun game. And it's kind of a shame Wilson isn't going to be in this. This is the kind of game that Wilson thrives in. The Capitals are 16-9-3, and Columbus is 16-9-2. So basically, they're both 16-12 if you want to make overtime losses. Very little to choose between these two teams when it comes to record, but it looks like they're going in two different directions. It does look like Columbus is in the struggling category a little bit, and that Washington, despite the injury to Wilson, it feels like they're probably at the top to, I'm not going to say necessarily to stay, but if they can put Columbus in the rearview mirror and Columbus falls back at all, I don't know who in that division would catch them. I really don't. Right now, the leading scorer for the Capitals, Ovechkin, 21 goals, 13 assists. Backstrom, 10 goals, 24 assists. Karlsson, 5 goals, 24 assists. Kuznetsov, 7 goals, 19 assists. Vrana, 9 goals, 18 assists. Connolly, 4 goals, 13 assists. Oshie, 9 goals, 5 assists. Wilson still on the board with 8 goals and 6 assists for 14 points. On the Columbus side, Atkinson, the guy nobody's talking about that's on pace for about 50 goals. It doesn't matter. He's in Columbus, so we're not talking about him. 19 goals and 12 assists for him. Panarin, 7 goals, 24 assists. He's the one everybody's talking about because he wants out of Columbus, apparently. Dubois, 13 goals, 12 assists. But if you listen to him and what his agent's saying, he's enjoying Columbus a lot right now because they're winning. So it'd be funny if he ends up just signing an extension. Foligno, 7 goals, 9 assists. Werenski, 5 goals, 11 assists. Seth Jones, 5 goals, 11 assists. Anderson, 12 goals, 3 assists. And there's Ryan Murray with a goal and 14 assists. And just off the board is Wenberg with the same point in totals. Holtby, I expect here, 10-7-2, 3.00 goals against, 907 save percentage. Copley, back up, 6-2-1 record, 2.95 goals against, 902 save percentage. I expect Bobrovsky here. Bobrovsky's 11-9, 3.04 goals against, 901 save percentage. Korpisalo, 5-1-2, 3.75 goals against, and an 883 save percentage. In their last 10, Washington's 8-2. They've won their last game. Columbus also won their last game, and they're 6-4 in their last 10. On the road, the Capitals are 8-5-1 at home. Columbus is 7-5-1. Columbus's home record's getting better. Versus the East, the Capitals are 8-4-2 versus the East. Columbus is 10-6-1. This is the battle for first in the Metro, just to show how close it is. Washington has 35 points. Columbus has 34. Regulation and overtime wins. Right now, Washington has 15. Columbus has 16. So that's one shootout win for Washington. And all of the wins for Columbus have come via shootout. Or not via shootout, versus overtime or regulation. So, very little to choose between these two teams. And that honestly should be game of the night. We may see a bunch of goals in this one. It feels like that, doesn't it? And a lot of excitement back and forth. Your guess is as good as mine who's going to win that one. I would give a slight edge to Columbus because they're at home, but it's an ever so slight edge. Let me know your picks in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.